Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Friday here in Australia. It is the 20th of November and it is an important day. In my life anyway, and it should be in yours. My name's Jade. This is How to App on iOS, and we have one of my favourite musicians and friends on the show today. And we're going to kick it off with some music from his band Mechanical Black from their forthcoming album. This is The Fallen Ones. Oh yeah. Whoa. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Sorry, a bit emotional after that. Anyway, that's another story. Live shows. There you go. It's just that day, I guess. As I said at the beginning of the show, it's the 20th of November. And it's a massive day for someone like me who is transgendered, because it is Transgender Day of Remembrance. And it's a day where the transgender community actually come together to count the amount of people who've been murdered over the past year. And this year, guess what? We've broken records. Thanks. So it's normally a down day, but I've started off there. I just want to get that out the way and be down on that moment there. So we've reached over 350 murders this year, and it's pretty tragic. But let's get all the dirty stuff out the way now. It's a real honor to have this person on the show today who is a longtime friend of mine. Before I get into introducing Riley onto the show, folks, if you're watching on Facebook, you can leave comments. You can come over and join us here on YouTube at youtube.com/Jade Starr, or you can go to How to App on iOS.com and watch it live from our website. So all that out of the way, I would like to introduce, as I said, a longtime friend, an incredibly influential creator whose just mastery of creating music, and as you can see from that video clip, is just beyond imagination. This is the incredibly gifted Riley Perry. Riley, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Great. Hi, Jade. Hi, everyone. Thanks for that intro. How wonderful. The same for you, by the way, Jade, too. For everyone out there, Jade is an incredible musician. I'm sure you've listened to her stuff, but I actually knew Jade's music before I knew Jade. So, yeah, she's pretty influential on me. You are, Jade, definitely.
Well, thank you very much. Well, let's start off because we're talking about Transgender Day of Remembrance, and you know it's an incredibly down day, and I've played gigs on this day many times, and I've always tried to put a more positive spin on it instead of the dreariness. So you know, I don't want to dwell on all that kind of stuff. But we actually met through I'm pretty sure this is right, through a transgender site. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. A social site, whose name now, whose name now is not so cool. But you know, the meaning of words change. But it was, you know, it's still around under a different name. I can't think of the name of it now. I think it's Transgender Radio. I think that's right.
That's a bit better than the old name.
Yeah. So the old name was, I mean, you can extrapolate. From that what the old name was, but it was all it still is very benevolent, and it's done a lot for my life. Just the community, the transgender community in general, the LGBTQI community in general has done so much for me, including yourself, Jade.
Yeah, well, same with you and the other band member. So Lewis, who's actually in the chat today, I can see Lewis is sitting there in the chat. So before I jump onto that, I better acknowledge our friends in the chat because they are here most of the time, every day, and they're great supporters of the channel. I can see Tom Rochelle is here, Scott, Pete Johns, Gary Hubbs, Russ, Andy Goldsby, Dr. Zorders. Who else have I missed? Anyone else? I see Well-Fed Productions. Is that Lewis under 2 YouTube accounts? You're trying to fill the numbers up, Lewis. Langston Rees, Lady Rodaline, welcome along as well. If there's that Deep Gravity, also Thomas Gillane, welcome, my friend. So I don't think I said Pete Johns, yeah. So welcome aboard. So Lewis as well is a band member, so songwriter, guitarist, vocalist in the band. You vocalist, guitarist in the band, and Hyde plays drums in the band. Do you guys have another fourth member these days?
Look, it fluctuates. Not at the moment. Our fourth member is at the moment a computer, but that's obviously we haven't been playing lately. I mean, no one's playing lately.
Thanks, God.
So we were planning something big. I'd planned a tour for us. But unfortunately, COVID got in the way.
Yeah. Well, let's just start with that before we get into a bit of your history. How has, I like to ask this of everyone on the show, how's COVID affected your creativity over the last few months? How's that gone?
Well, yeah, look, good and bad. Good and bad. I've got a lot of stuff done. I mean, but on the other hand, I like to collaborate. So I'm I know my strengths, so I focus on a very specific area of what I do best. And without the collaboration there, the end product suffers.
Yeah. So you haven't moved to the collaboration of online sending files back and forth? Is that something that you done before or had to move to?
We do that. Yeah. So all of the songs we've released this year, which it's actually been our most prolific year in 10 years. So
same here.
Yeah. So look, the net effect of COVID has actually been positive on the output, and the actual collaboration online. It has been. It's just you can't get people in a room bouncing ideas off each other as readily as you used to be able to. But I mean, I still send. I don't do the bulk of the technical work. I send that through to Lewis, who's just much more talented than me in that respect. Mixing, mastering, even arranging, putting things like strings in and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm kind of really basic when it comes to the finished product. So yeah, so I send that off. I send off a product that's maybe 30% finished, and then it comes back 100% finished. Yeah, much better than anything I could do.
I find that very hard to believe. Anyway.
Right.
So I just popped up a photo of Lewis. That's so there's Lewis, who's in the chat as well. So it's me when I was at his amazing little studio there when I was singing vocals on It's Over. So I bet it's been a while since you've been to that place. Oh, you guys aren't in lockdown anymore, though, are you? You can travel freely.
Yeah, look, we can, but it's still, look, we still try to abide by the societal rules of a pandemic here.
Yep.
Yeah.
You try to be a decent human.
Try to be a decent human, and it's so anyone could spread this virus.
Yeah.
And so it's best to. So I'm working from home all the time now. We've stopped meetings at work, for example. I haven't rehearsed in ages because of it. And it's not because we can't do it. It's because it's best not to do it, I think, at the moment.
Totally. So speaking of music, I always ask everybody this question. What does music mean to you?
Well, it means a few things, but I think I like to approach it from the way one thinks about things. So I don't have a particularly good mind's eye, for example. I find it hard to visualize things, but I have a very developed, and this might just be through practice, through years of listening rather than watching or thinking in pictures. But I think in audio. So music to me is the kind of language of at least my mind, and I think the language of a lot of musicians' minds. I use the term very broadly, the term musician, for anyone or anyone with a musical aptitude or anyone that gets into it. So for me, it's kind of everything. It's hard to explain, but yeah, emotions are wrapped up in there. There's nothing that isn't touched by it in some respect. So it's kind of for me, it's the language of the mind. That and an internal monologue. Yeah, I always think it's like the language we were meant to be speaking, but something fucked up along the way, and we got given this bullshit that we're using now, which gets misconstrued. And I think we'd be a happier place if every time we opened our mouth, music poured out. Yeah, well, I find it strange that people don't get into music. I mean, and that's fine. People can. You should just get into what you want to get into. I just find it odd. People find it odd that I think the way I do. So it's not for everyone, but I mean, for me, I'll hear a tune and it'll take me a couple of seconds to realize that it's not actually an external tune, that it's playing in my head. And, aside from obvious drug influences and schizophrenia and stuff like that, which I may well have, I really do think that that's because it's so important that my brain, my subconscious is constantly constantly doing music stuff, processing, thinking about riffs, lyrics, and what are we going to, how can we use this, manipulate this emotion that we're feeling now, and harness it somehow in musical form.
I was reading this is a bit kind of on topic, just talking about schizophrenia, mental illness kind of thing, because we talk about that a lot on this show, about well-being and stuff as well. I was reading a study on meth addiction and how people start to hear things in their head, and then and often when they have a shower, they meth addicts report that they hear symphonies really loudly when they're in the shower. And this
Really?
psychiatrist I was reading was saying it's because this is one of the reasons why we basically sing in the shower, and meth addicts, it heightens their senses to the point that they're hearing something that isn't there, and it's heightening the actual music that people normally actually sing to the rhythm of what. It was just so bizarre reading it. I don't even know why I went down that path, but there's a lot of amazing theories you read about music, and they're all valid, I guess.
Yeah. So it sounds like meth has some benefits that aren't advertised. Yeah.
Well, I guess it does. It doesn't everything have benefits unless not done in moderation. That's my view on.
Yeah. Well, what was the phrase? Everything in moderation, including moderation itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, what do you recall? What kind of music was played in your household during your time growing up, and if so, has it had an effect on what you listen to now? Has it left a scar?
Definitely. My parents were both heavily into music. My dad, in fact, came to Australia from the UK as a singer, attempting to join the con. He didn't get in. And my mother was very much into music. She still has her own bands and stuff. So wow. I got introduced to a lot of cool stuff when I was younger. Pink Floyd. I remember hearing my first acid jazz album. It's a band called Alpha Omega, I think. Yeah. It made me physically sick, and so I shouldn't say literally. It made me almost physically sick. But that kind of visceral reaction to music is something that I really enjoy. That I really enjoy having that, being so involved in that. So yeah, apparently, according to my parents, and I don't, I cannot confirm this, but apparently when I was a young kid, I was a really big Kiss head.
So was I.
I don't remember it. I know I like some Kiss songs, but yeah, I don't remember listening to Kiss specifically when I was 6 or 7 or whatever.
I had Iota on the show as well, and he was as well. So
okay.
There's a whole lot of us, I had all the I was a bit obsessed. I had all the dolls, and my mum bought the Kiss Your Face makeup, and she made an Ace Frehley costume. We used to hold concerts on the front veranda.
Well, I mean, their stage show is still one of the best that's ever been done. It's it's just an incredible band from a theatrical point of view. So I think a lot of kids, plus the music's catchy, obviously. So a lot of kids probably still would see Kiss, and it's very much marketed towards kids, I think.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think it was the theatrics of Kiss that really did it for me, because I don't really listen to them at all these days. There's I don't have a hunger to listen to. I find them a bit cringe, and that's just my opinion. We all have a taste, but I did love the spitting blood and stuff.
Yeah. It's more the. I mean, there are a few crackers amongst the Kiss songs. But there's just so much else to listen to that they don't often. They're not often on my playlist. Put it that way.
No. So, do you remember the first album that you actually were given or bought?
Look, I can remember having and listening to the final cut, and the Pink Floyd, the final cut, and not being impressed with it.
Wow.
And thinking that, yeah, this is not a good album. I can remember thinking that so that must have been when it first came out. As for specific albums I got into before that, I'm sure I did. I just can't remember what they were. And the first album I purchased, I think, was British Steel by Judas Priest.
Nice. That's a good first album.
Yeah, it certainly got me hooked on Judas Priest. It's a fantastic album.
Yeah, well, I'm embarrassed of mine. My first album was Unmasked by Kiss.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
My nana bought it for me from Walton's.
That's a. Yeah, I mean that was a mistake. I think being not for you and your nan, but for Kiss doing the whole unmasked thing. I mean they realised it was a mistake, right? And they went back to wearing the makeup. But I mean, what are the tracks off that album that really stand out?
Shandy.
Okay, yeah.
That's the one I remember the most because it was on more. Remember they used to have video clips on TV in the morning each day, like before you went to school, and I just remember that clip being the one that popped up. And because remember, Unmasked was let's go back. So I can't remember. It was in the 70s, clearly, but that was probably one of the first trolls by a band because, in Shandy they supposedly take their makeup off, and at the end of the clip they're walking down an alleyway and the photographer catches them in their suit and takes a photo, and they turn around and they've still got their makeup on. So, and that was the troll on the front cover with the comic strip, how they...
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, right.
So I can't imagine Gene Simmons even imagining being a troll. He's not that deep.
Yeah. I was seeing Russ in the comments there is just saying that there's some underrated tracks on the final cut. I mean, look, it's later on, I got into all of the more sort of esoteric Pink Floyd albums. Yeah. Initially, I mean, it's still Animals is, I think, my favorite Pink Floyd album. But yeah, I did get into everything, including the Roger Waters stuff at some stage. But it was important to me in that I was critiquing the album at the time. It's more the fact that I was this kid who knew nothing about music, but still had the hubris to critique an album, by Pink Floyd nonetheless. This is not good enough. Yeah, as a young child, I was already a pretentious sort of music hipster.
Have you maintained that critical lifestyle?
Well, I mean, you lived with me, Jade. You know that I have.
I'm gonna let you answer though.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, yeah. Yep. But I think everyone who's passionate about it is kind of critical, and we say some. For instance, I've got a few artists that I really pick on as a more of a funny theme than an actual kind of for my taste from a taste perspective. But it is just funny that people get so into bands and that they are so kind of what's the word? Pretentious is not the word, but you know what I mean. They're so into it, and they think that they have. Yeah, I'm talking about myself here. I think that I am the world's greatest critic of music. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of things going on in the world right now, everything's become very much like that. Like we're barracking for a sports team. Politics has gone down that path. Sports is like that. And, music, it's like, I find it funny that when I was a kid and listening to Metallica, and I'd have dickheads at school go, fucking metalhead and all this shit, and I'd be like, don't pick on Metallica. And now if I run into them like 20 years later and they're into Metallica and I'm like, Metallica suck, and they're like, don't pick on Metallica.
Right.
Like, Freaky Friday has happened.
Yeah. Well, Metallica are a great example of a band that have changed their position a number of times in my mind in terms of where they are on the rankings and whether or not I should mention their name in polite conversation or not. But it's a funny story. So I was born in 1972. 1972. So that makes me 48. Yeah, we're both the same age. I was actually a massive fan of both Metallica and Jethro Tull in 1989 when the Grammy was awarded to Jethro Tull. And there was a huge uproar about that. There weren't many kind of crossover fans that were fans of both bands. So for me, it was kind of funny to watch the whole thing. And I was happy for Jethro Tull to win. You know, I knew Metallica are obviously a better hard rock metal band than Jethro Tull are. You know, Jethro Tull probably are, if anything, a prog sort of folk with hard rock influences band. But yeah, it was funny being a fan of both bands, and I know everyone else, almost everyone else that I'm friends with, despises Jethro Tull. But I love them.
I know.
They're great.
Looking back, I remember when it happened, it was like, oh, really? And, you know, I remember being honest about it at the time and saying, yeah, but Jethro Tull are they're a better band. They're better musicians, let's be honest. Like, if anybody out of musicianship deserved to win an award, I think it was just like, you know, for so long I think people had wanted a metal category. And because that was the first year there was a metal category, wasn't it? It was the absolute first year.
That's it. It was the first one. And Metallica even played live at the Grammys.
But, you know, you have to be realistic. And looking back on it, you know, 2020's vision is always an interesting thing. And it makes sense for Metallica, you know, to be a metal band and win an award for something like that. You actually, have to not be very metal to win the metal category.
Yeah. Well,
it's the Grammy.
It was still confusing at the time too. The genres were still a bit confusing.
Yeah.
AC/DC, in the 80s, everything from Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, another obvious blues and hard rock based stuff, were kind of loosely piled into that metal category. You were talking about Metallica, and there was a big schism in the hard rock community. I remember it well when thrash first came in, and first came in Australia, and there was a rift between the older new wave of British heavy metal crowd and the hard rock crowd, and a lot of the Metallica people. I can remember there even being two distinct groups at my high school. There were these. So I was in the thrash group in high school, and we were nerds. It was not a tough guy thing. I mean, we had pretensions to being tough or whatever, but we were all Dungeons and Dragons players and stuff. Yeah, it was not as if we were. That it was already established as a kind of as bully music, you know, hard rock and new wave of British heavy metal and stuff like that. Already established as bully music, and now Metallica is bully music. Yep. It's what the bullies listened to at high school, right?
Yeah. I was going to say bogan, but I like the term bully.
Yeah.
It's that real.
Fucking akadaka, mate.
Yeah, man. Akadaka.
For our overseas listeners, that is AC/DC, of course.
Yes.
Akadaka. Have you heard the new chat song, AC/DC CD?
No.
It's amazing. Yeah.
All right.
AC/DC CD. Yeah.
Okay, so I have to have a look at that.
The chats, by the way, are for our listeners overseas, are a band that you have to listen to. The lead singer has red hair and a mullet, and is unapologetically bogan / bully punk.
Yes, nice.
Yeah.
Man, you have sparked a shitload of conversation in the chat here on Pink Floyd. It looks like I'm not following it properly, but is there going to be a fight breakout, or is everyone? I'm joking.
Yeah, look, I'm going to stick with my guns here. I just don't think Final Cut is a great Pink Floyd album, and the combination of. Tell me what you think, Jade. The combination of Gilmour and Waters, I think, was magic. Barrett was cool, you know, but Gilmour and Waters together, I think, made some magic. The way the interplay between them and how they bounced off each other and didn't really like each other that much once they split, I consider the Final Cut the last album that they were together. Waters and Gilmour were together. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. Look, I'm not an expert on Pink Floyd. I know there are
people in the comments there.
I guess for me, for Pink Floyd, it's almost like in my head, there's two different versions of Pink Floyd. There's your Barrett, which is what people go, oh, they're like Pink Floyd are crazy, man. And then you've got the later iteration where is all the magical stuff that, the iconic stuff, which, you can't, there's no way you could ever say that it's shit music. Anybody who thinks it's shit music is delusional. But, everybody has an opinion. I think, and this is just a personal thing, from when I was growing up, I was into thrash and death metal. I went from thrash to death metal very quickly. And one of my first girlfriends was just a dog. And her whole family were a bunch of Scottish drunks and just bullies, just real bogans. And they all loved Pink Floyd. So for a long time, I associated that scummy relationship and those people with Pink Floyd. It's really unfortunate, man. But you know how that happens with music, because music's such a powerful thing that it works along with memory. So you just associate certain music with that. But
that's right, isn't it? Yeah.
But then over the years, I've got back into Pink Floyd and caught up on all their catalogue, and I've slowly got away from that horrid feeling of Karen and her shitty Scottish drunk family.
Yeah, it's a shame Pink Floyd was coloured that way. I mean, I've got my first big funeral was they were playing Pink Floyd at the wake, and it was one of the most emotional music. It was Dark Side of the Moon playing at this wake, and I was just, it just blew me away. I mean, it still sends shivers down my spine. The way that affected me when I saw everyone, I was a teenager, and I don't know if it's my first funeral, but the first one I can really remember being emotionally affected by the aftermath of. And Pink Floyd just it featured a lot in my younger days. I think they're a fantastic band.
Yeah, so let's get off music for a minute, because I know this is another big part of your life, and that's your love of computers. Because, and we're transparent on the show. I've lived with you for a time, and you can probably see, folks, behind Riley. Riley has the most amazing collection of computers. In fact, so much so that, was it recently you're like, to do with a computer society?
Yeah, I'm secretary of the Australian Computer Museum Society.
Oh, wow.
And Australia actually has the oldest surviving first generation electronic stored program computer in the world. A lot of people don't know that, but it was built in 1949. So I mean, these electronic machines go back to the mid 40s.
Yeah.
And the first lot of them were dismantled, apart from this one, which was used up until the mid 60s. We shipped it down to Victoria there, so it's down at where is it? Where it's Science Works now.
Yep, in Williamstown. Yeah, that is.
Yeah. So computers and music together are of greatest interest to me. I tried to actually initially do a PhD thesis in the sort of combining computer science and music, but the music department wouldn't have a bar of it because I'm not classically trained. And well, I mean, that's understandable. I don't have the rigor that they'd need to write papers and stuff. But I disagree with their decision there. But I get into computers, but computers and music as well. For example, I'm a Cubase user, and perhaps we could talk about doors and stuff like that. But I really wanted to. So I built a VST shell, and so I got the VST shell running through Cubase. You know, it's a VST plugin, so you can use it in other places too, because they all have a standard sort of format. But the idea was to use this plugin shell to write new kinds of software to actually do stuff that's different to what every other plugin or every other pedal or whatever, but to play live through. So it was a project that fused sort of programming and artwork together. And for me, that's what's happening in music in general now. There's a melding of the engineering process and the playing process. Yeah. And I think the artist, for example, Lewis, who you're going to talk to soon, is a genius at writing stuff on a DAW, a digital audio workstation. And, you know, that to me is a musical instrument, the DAW.
100%, yeah. Look, anything, well, you know, that's what this show is about. Every day we look at apps. We look at ways to create a video, music using iPads, whatever, you know, you can create with. And technology has become such a major part of music. I mean, and Pete Johns, who's in the chat here, has his own channel, Studio Live Today. He says it all the time. We live in the future. And, you know, we have the ability to, just for example, like he just did an interview just before this show, and I've interviewed Jacob Hack as well. He's an electronic music artist from Europe who's just recently worked together with an app developer, and they've created a bass synth all based on his ideas as a creator, working with a developer, and you know, so this melding of artistry, creativity, and developers is really, it's going to go big places in the next, you know, it's happening now. What am I saying? It's happening, you know. We are in the future. Yeah. Well,
we are, and there's a lot of concern around artificial intelligence, for example. I mean, there are good and bad aspects to it. I mean, I think it's kind of garbage in, garbage out with that stuff, though.
Yeah.
So, to me, you know, people are like, oh, the AI is going to take over, the AI is going to do all the jobs. But what the AI actually is, or what it traditionally has been, not so much with deep learning, but it's just someone else did the work already.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. They've already done the work, and you're just utilizing that work.
Yeah, so someone's brought up the child for you.
Yeah. So you're not, you're not. It's not this deep dark machine that's actually creating the music or whatever. Someone else has gone through a series of steps to create a system that creates things, and you know it. With deep learning, it's the same sort of thing. There's an argument. John Searle, a philosopher, he talks about the Chinese room. And the Chinese room is something where you, it has responses, and it can pass the thing called the Turing test, in that it can talk as if it were a human, like a chatbot does now, and you can't distinguish it from a human. That's what the Turing test is for. And Turing said that once a computer can converse like a human, it's indistinguishable from a human, so we can call it sentient, which of course is bullshit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but the Chinese room argument from Searle is that all of that stuff that the Chinese room, this machine is saying, in this case Chinese, so it can interpret and answer things in Chinese, is just all pre-written by humans anyway. So there's no semantic understanding inside that machine. It's just work done by other people beforehand.
Yeah, call response. And you know, it's not being used to its fullest capabilities anyway. The largest place it's being used at the moment is in our social media, sucking down our energy and spewing shit back at us, you know. It's definitely... At least it's good to see it being used in applications of music applications and things like that. There's going to be fantastic things for it to be used for. But I agree, I don't think it's going to kill us.
Yeah, I think it'll just force change.
Yeah.
Music's a very visceral live thing that we kind of... now it's easier to write So we got to focus more on the actual performance and social side of it, I guess, as as this current crop anyway. I'm sure there'll be a new crop of musicians that will fuse all the technology together and do some amazing new thing.
Well, while we've just hit computers, I'm going to play a song of yours. Because it's on that subject and it's got a lot of Easter eggs in it. So this is an older track of yours, and it's a cover, by the way. So this is, and after we'll play the song and then we'll come back and have a chat about that and continue on. So this is, folks, a Mechanical Black. This is, and you're going to love this. Trust me. The first time I saw this, I absolutely loved it, laughed my tits off, and have watched it that many times on your channel. It's ridiculous, and send it to so many of my friends. This is a cover of the classic 80s track Together in Electric Dreams. So enjoy, folks, and we'll be right back. Oh, yeah, let me get my iPad up. There we go.
Are we rolling? Initialize entanglement buffers.
Yes, master.
Engaging Higgs field generators. Starting mat array in 3, 2, 1.
Cool, there you go, folks. So Together in Electric Dreams there. Oops, make sure my volume's down. Always a good time. When I watch that, it just reminds me of back living in Sydney, seeing all my old friends back there. I miss all you guys living in Melbourne.
Yeah, we miss you too.
I do want to come back at some stage. But then I've built this whole studio here.
Yeah, well, you've got a good thing going down there. Yeah.
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah, well, in case obviously your long-time listeners will know that you guys have been locked down a lot more than us here in the more northern parts of Australia.
Yeah, and it's given me time to collect some superannuation, and I should have been in America this year. That was my plan this year, but instead it was let's build a studio and let's try and finish my album, because I'm in the same boat as you with an album going on forever and ever and ever and ever.
Yeah, I remember doing listens for many years of various tracks in various forms. Yep.
So before we talk about that stuff, because we'll get into Mechanical Black and that, the great thing about that video clip that we just played there, you had all these amazing people in that video clip. So people are watching that video, you would have seen all these little boxes up on the screen with all these little random people you probably had no idea who the fuck they were. Tell us a little bit of the story about who those people were.
Okay, so I'm glad you played that version, because that's the Solutions version. It's there are two versions of the video. There's one without the additional text on top of the cameo windows. But that's 20. There are 20 cameos in total in that video from people that are important in the IT industry. So there's, for example, the guy that invented email attachments is one of the people in the video. Jeff Minter, who wrote Llamatron and various Llamasoft games for the C64. So it's all about Easter eggs. It started by me compiling a list about 10 years ago, a list of 800 people who I thought were influential in the IT industry. I could get about 200 of their contact details at that stage. About 50 of them actually said yes, that they'd appear in the clip, and eventually it got down to, with people thinking about it and stuff. Because back at the time, transgender related stuff was still a lot, people didn't want to be associated with it. So, all of those people knew that they were supporting, because Mechanical Black are a very pro sort of LGBTQI band and pro trans rights and all that sort of stuff. So they all knew that, and we got 20 people. 20 people to eventually do little videos singing along, or at least give us a message. So there are a few message boxes there. What was funny was some of the no's. So, one day when I write the story of putting that song together, and once these people have maybe, are no longer with us and they can't sue me, I could I could perhaps, I can paraphrase some of the responses now, but it should be private, people's responses, I think. But some of them were not particularly nice. Most of them were fantastic.
Yeah,
most of them were.
You get that. I did a show this week where I had an email from somebody who wished that I was dead, and I
saw that.
It was I just love at the end of it how they had to put like Trump 2020. One of the comments from my friend was like, I don't think you needed to put that.
Yeah, exactly.
We got it.
It's not just that too. It's not just the MAGA, the MAGA nuts.
Yeah.
It's there's also this kind of intellectual dark web. People like Sam Harris, who are vehemently anti-trans, and they'll use transgender issues as an intro into their anti-woke tirades. They'll say, and it's so it's always got to start with obviously it doesn't always, but a lot of the time it starts with, and this person's trans or whatever, as an example of left-wing madness. So there's still a lot of hatred around, and people that aren't accepting basic science. I mean, if you can't see now that a simple application of hormones changes someone's personality, their body, their bone structure so profoundly that it blurs the line between genders, then you're just not looking at the science. And yeah. So it's not just MAGA people. And there are some MAGA people who are quite accepting of transgender people, I should add too. So it's not all of them. Yeah.
And I think people forget too that, they focus so much on this, like, about the physicality of it and stuff. People forget that these hormones and things, these people who, transition and stuff, it changed their disposition to happy. And that should be the more important thing that people hold on to. Aren't we all aiming to be happier than shittier?
Indeed.
I was watching a Ben Shapiro thing yesterday. I know, why would I do that to myself? But he had this rant going, I can't believe that there are men wearing dresses. Can you believe it? A man in a dress who dresses for women. And it's just like, what the fuck, dude? Is this what you wake up to every day? And this is the thing that grinds your gears? Like, dude, you fucking, get in an oven, man. Do the world a favour. You're wasting my time with this. An article of cloth. Like, this guy's like, cloth, it shouldn't be on a certain person's skin. It's like,
I mean, he's doing that for ratings. I mean, surely that guy knows better.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
These people know better. They clearly do. You mentioned I just want to bring this up. I'll see if this works. I downloaded this app yesterday. You might be interested in this. It probably won't work. Oh, no, it's up the right way. So this is, you can probably see it on your screen. This is a SID chip emulator.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Right. And so you've got a drum kit here. And you've got all your samples, and it comes with built into it. You're going to love this, man. It comes with commando built in. So when you hit play, and you can fuck with it.
Yeah, okay. So it's a tracker as well as a SID chip emulator. Yeah.
I got that yesterday for like $10 on the App Store. All day.
Fantastic. What's it actually called? It's hard for me to read it from here.
I'll close out of the app so we can spin around. So it's called SID Tracker 64.
SID Tracker 64. Okay. Yeah. Cool. I have to check that out.
I was in heaven yesterday. There's a whole lot of other games, full songs of games in there as well that you can remix.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was chatting pretty hard over that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great chip. The SID chip's a great chip. The C64 is a great machine.
Definitely is. What was your first machine before we jump into Mechanical Black?
A TRS-80 Model 1 Level 2.
Wow, there you go.
16K of RAM.
Mine was a VIC-20.
A VIC-20?
Yeah.
Okay, I have one of those over here.
I thought you would have had 3 of them.
Yeah, well, I might have more than one, but I've got one actually boxed. So, in the original packaging, a VIC-20 in the original packaging.
I think it came with a cartridge game called Rat Race. I think that's what it was called.
Rat Race.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Horrible. Yeah. Well, the VIC-20, yeah.
It was like a Pac-Man clone, but with rats running around a maze chasing cheese. Clearly.
It's amazing how quickly computers changed back then, fundamentally from year to year. Now we see incremental changes, and I can expect to upgrade for instance, the machine I'm talking to you on now, this laptop I just recently got. But the older laptop is sitting right next to it, and still does a great job at stuff. And I still use them both. But back then, I wouldn't think of using the same computer 4 years later.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's just
sacrilege.
Sacrilege. I mean, So it was an amazing time to be going through computers.
Yeah, indeed. So I remember when Mechanical Black started. So, and I was thinking about this today. I still don't have, in my travels, I like to keep a lot of my favourite CDs, but I've had to move around a fair bit. And I still have a lot of old CDs, but I don't have a copy of the original Mechanical Black album that you had a launch party at your house.
Yeah. Well, that was... I mean, that's a good thing that you don't have a copy of that, because I don't really want that getting out.
No, but,
It was terrible.
No, but regardless on what you think of it now, because we all look back on things and go, that was shite. And normally when you just release something, you go, well, that's done. Oh, that's shite. On to the next thing, and not to that extreme, but, and you have to go through that period. I remember what you were trying to achieve when you started Mechanical Black, and it wasn't what it is now. Exactly what it is now seems like really where you want it to go, but I guess that all comes down to gear and the right people and everything just working at the right time. How has Mechanical Black changed since those days, and lineup members and the direction we wanted to go?
Yeah, well, I first thought of the concept when I was actually in high school, so years and years and years ago. I thought it'd be good to have sort of a fusion of transgender and metal type. No one had really done that. I mean, there was a lot of androgyny, which was kind of, there was a lot of that stuff in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, 80s for sure.
Yeah. But there was always this kind of, but we're not porfs, like that kind of thing. There was there was not a willingness to go all the way, and to actually represent, a good chunk of the community.
I won't get my dick chopped off.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. But the real inception, you were there. We were all out, and we all discussed how it'd be good to do this project. I think that was about 13 years ago. We were out at where was it? 2007. Yeah. So that was Mel. Mel was just going through transition.
Yep.
So we decided to, for those of you who I consider myself genderqueer, I guess you would call it, but I don't really label it. I have phases. What I wanted to represent was the fact that it's not all black and white.
Yeah.
That you go through a lot of. We wanted to sort of have an album about transition. So we followed kind of Mel, what she was going through in her 2 years of doing transition. Starting hormone therapy and stuff, and I was hanging out with you guys and the transgender community. It wasn't called that back then, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
And that's where I've made some of my best lasting friendships in Sydney through that community. So they were all really helpful and supportive. But yeah, the idea was to represent the concept of transition in album form. So sort of go through all the phases and all of the different self-loathing and stuff like that. So it's being transgender is not a one-way, and all I just want to be female thing. It's a confusion a lot of the time. It's a dysphoria for a lot of people. Yep. A lot of people sometimes, I want to be a dude. I don't want to be a chick, or I don't want to be a dude. You can change from day to day. And I wanted to show that sort of confusion of emotions and stuff with a mixture of very aggressive and very heartfelt sort of acoustic pieces, and sort of mix it all up and have this sort of sine wave of your emotional change through and eventual acceptance at the end of the transition process. So the end song is very hopeful, and so it kind of gets a lot less dark towards the end of the album. So that was the concept anyway, to really write a project. It was more of a project than a band at the time. We wanted to write an album about transition, and that took maybe 3 years to finish.
Yeah, so this is Reborn, yeah?
Yeah, this is Reborn.
So, and look, I agree. within any group of people, there's always a division and different ideas that people have. And my ideas have changed throughout, my transition and all this stuff too. And I've been against these groups and these, and as people, we go through this stuff, and that's okay. As long as you continue to grow with your ideas, and gender is across a spectrum, just like people talk about autism now being on a spectrum. In fact, we are human beings on a spectrum. Our planet is a spectrum. The weather is across a spectrum. Everything's not black and white, and there's an ebb and flow. There's black and white. There's night and day, and that's the way it is. And there's everything in between. So and I think that's not only because I knew you, but I really loved the way with Reborn that you incorporated the anger and the emotion into it, because just because somebody's transgender doesn't mean that they're just going to go from being this one person to oh, now I don't like working on cars anymore, or I don't like I don't like watching UFC, because there can be that anger stuff still, because we're human, and no matter if you're trans and you're going from a male to a female, it doesn't mean you just like flowers all of a sudden over UFC, and I think your music encompasses that with the aggression, and I think at times there's a real Beatles feel to a lot of the music in that Reborn album. I don't know if that's Mel's influence, but
definitely Mel's influence. Yeah.
But I do get that every time I listen to it. It's an album I've listened to a lot, because
thank you.
I love the album, and I'm trans, and I identify with a lot of the topics in it. So going in from there, your live shows too. There's been some crazy. I want to just cover this because it's pretty full on. There's shows of you covered in blood and cutting off your member, and done some pretty full on stuff on stage, even to the point that you actually had a heart attack on stage.
Well, I had a stroke.
Yeah, but
it's a mini stroke. It was just
pretty
my carotid.
Full on though.
Yeah, I cut my carotid artery on stage, jumping around in I had a neck choker on, and it was very tight, and at the time the stage shows were quite lively, and it cut into my carotid artery, and when I took the neck choker off, I was paralyzed on my right hand side. Thankfully, it only lasted for a few minutes, and I didn't get any lasting brain damage or anything from it. But kids out there, watch out for getting too excited on stage. It can certainly affect you. But it was. It's a great story. It's I'm the guy that almost died on stage.
Yeah.
In a tutu. So. It was when I was taken to hospital. They took me to the hospital, and so we would often go extreme with the stage show. I'd wear a necklace full of needles, for example, with blood in them, syringes and stuff, and we'd try to push the envelope.
Yeah, of course.
And I was looking like that in the emergency room, and I can remember this one drunk girl came in and she saw me and she said, "What the fuck is that?" So it was a great story. Obviously it was quite traumatic.
Yeah.
But luckily it didn't have any lasting effects, and it was only it's what happens, I think, when people do a chokehold on you. They cut off the circle of Willis, which is this area around your brain that gives blood to your brain. And what happens is the other carotid, so you've got one on either side, and what happens is it takes a little while for the other one to kick in, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wasn't at the gig, so I remember hearing about it and just what the fuck? I can only imagine, Lewis has just written in. Sorry, Lewis has written in the chat. Trust you two to laugh about Riley almost dying. We're laughing at.
Well, thanks, Healing Heart.
Laughing at the situation.
Yeah, gallows humour is great. So, any chance to extract humour from a situation is well worth it. Humour is possibly the one of the highest highest pinnacles of human achievement.
The most important thing is that you're still here, and that's fucking
yes.
all that counts. Like, you know.
Yeah.
God damn. But yeah, I remember seeing it. I think I saw it on Facebook and was just like, what the fuck? I mean, and then later on we lived together, and then I got incredibly sick while I was living with you, and it happened to me in another fucking state, and I ended up being stuck in hospital away from where I was living with you. Going, what the fuck? I'm gonna die in a fucking hospital. You know, I don't even live here. What the fuck is going on? You know.
Yeah, well, you've had some ongoing. I mean, how is that now, Jade? How are you going now?
Yeah, it's not worth going on about, man. It's
not worth it.
They're never going to fix it. So every day I wake up, like today before the show, I was bleeding for about 30 minutes from my nose and mouth. It's just
shit.
It's just an everyday thing, you know, and you just get used to it. Like, it is what it is, and you just make the best of what you've got. So that's what this show's about. You know, I've said this many times. The only reason I do this show was to help me get out of bed each morning to do something, to actually stop moping around and just laying in bed covered in wiping blood away all the time. And then as it's turned out, I get to come on here now every day and help people create music, get to talk to amazing artists that I love, and so it's turned into something amazing and incredibly positive. So in a way, you sit there and think,
excellent.
I'm glad I'm sick in a way, because like sometimes you need a kick in the ass, and people take for granted what they have, and you know.
Yeah. Well, we're all dead one day, so make the most of it and get your art out there. It's don't let anything get in the way of that. Yeah, especially you.
You listen to us. Get your art out there. We've both been working on albums for close to 8 years.
Yeah, well, there is a point where there's diminishing returns. I should warn everyone that being a perfectionist is there is a point at which it's counterproductive to be a perfectionist.
So let's talk about that. Let's get into this album, because you've released these songs on YouTube. So, folks, I'll point this out now, because oftentimes I do dumb things because of my brain. And I had a mild stroke myself in 2016. And since that, I forget a lot of dumb shit. So let's just go down this. So you can check the description, and there's links to all of Mechanical Black's music and the YouTube channel, so you can check out all of these clips, because there's too many for me to play in this show. But, so this album started out about 8 years ago, and from what I remember, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, from my time living with you, because there was a time when I was singing some vocals on this, and before all the shit went down with me getting sick and all that, that was the plan. This album was based on transhumanism, and it's called Continuum. So is that still the whole idea behind the album?
Yeah, it's a rough concept album. There are a lot of songs about consciousness, about losing the flesh, about even sort of alien life and communicating with alien life and stuff like that. Each album, the intention is each album is an album about change, about transition. Yeah. So the first one was gender transition. The next is losing the flesh, and what are the philosophical implications of losing the flesh? Can we do that? For example, is that there's the concept of dualism, where there's a soul that's separate to the body. I mean, we look at things like that, and take it in directions that what if that was the case? I think a lot of people nowadays get confused. They talk about uploading. So there's a big uploading kind of scene in the transhumanism. There's a big uploading theme in the transhumanism scene, which is uploading your consciousness onto a computer. To me, that's a form of dualism. So I don't know if you can separate your brain, your physical, organic brain, and the substrate that your brain is based on from the consciousness itself. But that, that's the example of the kind of thing we I'm not saying that's the case. It's just I don't know. I'm not a dualist, but I imagine that there could be a situation where dualism is true. We examine those kinds of themes.
Yeah, right. And so this album's been recorded. So as you mentioned earlier, so it's between your studio there. So is that's still upstairs at your place where you're at now?
Yeah, look, the drums and stuff, we've recorded this over a long period of time. So all the drums were done in a studio. In fact, these drums were done, some of the songs, the drums were done when James Cameron was building his submarine to go down the Mariana Trench. He built that submarine. And these people in the studio, so I'd walk outside the studio to have a chat with Hide, the drummer, while he was having a cigarette or something. And we'd notice these people building this secret thing. And it was in this warehouse a couple of doors down. And yeah, they were building that submarine for James Cameron. And James Cameron was often at that warehouse I don't know about often, but yeah, apparently he did visit. So possibly James Cameron heard some of the drums being recorded for this song. There we go.
nice story.
For this album.
Possibly, maybe he heard a glimpse of them.
Yeah, he might have had a cymbal or a ride, maybe a cymbal or a snare. Yeah, I'd say he would have heard at least one of them.
So all the drums are recorded there, and you've got but where you are now, that's your usual upstairs studio that you had when I was there, yeah. Yeah. Connected to your room. Yeah. Because it looks a bit different, and I'm gathering why you've got more computers in there is you've probably run out of space in the rest of your house, which is a virtual library.
Yeah, well, I have
a lot of books.
I have around 30,000 books here, but I mean the bulk of them are because I bought the stock from a bookstore, a secondhand bookstore, and I wanted to sell them on eBay. So they're all sitting in huge piles around the house. But it's there is a lot of stuff in here, but I do mainly use this as my studio.
Yeah.
On the most of the tech is on the recommendation of Lewis, who really knows his stuff. So, I have Yamaha monitors. I have a Rode NTK2 microphone, which is really good. All the software I use is pretty much on comes from all of that. All of that learning is not learning I've done on my own.
Yeah. So you've got your studio there, and you've got Lewis's studio. And the last time, I was there for the album recording, you had, all the songs, and it's hard to describe the songs. As I said, earlier, there's such a mesh of progressive metal. There's, elements of Ozzy Osbourne and stuff I hear from it. There's, really melodic. When I wrote the description for the band, I actually wrote Avant-Progressive Trans Metal.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, Reborn was more, definitely more diverse than the new stuff. The new stuff is heavier.
Yep. Just
in general, so there are no real, ballads or anything like that. There's full on big power chords in all of the songs.
Of course.
But it is still. Pretty diverse in that. Well, as you know, I'm also in Shanghai with Lewis, and Shanghai is a much more progressive art rock, bungalesque style band. But some of that stuff has come across, and that sort of stuff is really appealing to me. I love Jethro Tull, for example. Definitely not everyone in my bands loves Jethro Tull, I should say that. But Frank Zappa, Jethro Tull, all that kind of experimental music really is appealing to me, the whole progressive scene. And wider than progressive, when people think of progressive, they tend to think of Dream Theater. But I'm talking about Yes and the Moody Blues and Jethro Tull, Frank Zappa, Mr. Bungle, a large cross section of bands that try and do a lot of different stuff, and their musical palette is much wider, and that really appeals to me. Is that not everyone's cup of tea, but yeah. I love all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and when I had a show I did a few weeks ago when I released It's Over, the collab I did with Lewis, and during that show I actually played the whole video clip of the whole the massive full Shanghai video clip, the extended version on the show.
Yep.
And
Yep.
because it's just a fucking masterpiece. Like,
why
that is not like fucking being played everywhere, just fucking is like a...
It's weird, isn't it, the way music is? It's, you've got bands that, I know some tremendous bands who have incredible stuff and they've got 10 subscribers. It's, it's kind of random a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have the time to promote your music or get your subscriber count up or are skilled at that. If you just focus on making the music, you're pretty much fucked. You have to have this other amount of time you can allocate to advertising it now, which is a very different skill set to what it used to be.
Or beg some wanker on Spotify to put you on their playlist. Some random person who has no fucking idea about music. So and like people just follow this. It's so bizarre, the promotion. Like lately, I've been pushing. I think there's we've seen a big comeback in vinyl and stuff lately, and like a few of the bands who I know who I've had on the show here, I've been really pushing to them saying, just send your shit to radio. Like, there's a real renaissance of, I think, home studio music due to COVID happening. And the whole industry's kind of shit itself because they don't know what to do. They're fucked. They're like going, our management can't do anything for us. We're all stuck at home and we don't know what the fuck to do. And so there's been this rise of home studio people who are producing all this amazing stuff. And now there's an increasing rise of radio to start playing independent artists from home studios. I'm seeing it more and more, even on local radio here. And even in the last 3 weeks, I've had my music played on like 4 radio stations. There's a resurgence of that kind of happening. So promotion, I'm hoping COVID really does pull us out of this shithole that the music industry's been in for such a long time.
Yeah, one of the things that we'll do is, the music is based around youth and sex appeal a lot, and when you can't gig, and it's not about videos and stuff like that, the music, I think, is probably going to be better.
Yeah.
It's not so much a visual format when it comes to, it's kind of, back to the old days before the good-looking people took over.
Give us uglies our spotlight back.
give us uglies on Spotify, and that's definitely the case with progressive music. I think it's more about it's definitely not about the look. It's more about the talent and the arrangements and the material itself, which is great. There are obviously some people like Mike Patton who are extremely talented and ultra good looking too. Yeah, that's right.
There's a whole lot of progressive bands watching right now going, ooh, but I'm cute to my wife.
Look, I'm sure there are a higher than average percentage of great looking progressive people out there. But coming from a underground metal scene from the late 80s, there weren't a lot of lookers there.
Yeah,
there weren't a lot.
Just stick with what you started with. You're all ugly if you make progressive music.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Don't pander.
I saw Hawkwind mentioned there on the people are mentioning Hawkwind. Now you can't get uglier than Lemmy, right? But he's wonderful. He's wonderful, and Hawkwind. I think Hawkwind are a great band with or without Lemmy.
Yeah.
But he's not winning any beauty pageants.
Yeah, but he did score some pretty hot girls. I know one in particular who we both know.
We do indeed.
Yes.
We do indeed. Yes. Yeah.
If you're watching out there, you know who you are.
I know who you are.
All right. The album. When's the album going to be finished?
Look, we plan to finish it by the end of the year. Probably now, maybe around January, early February.
I have a bizarre feeling because I think mine's really getting closer now. I'm working on it every day now. We're probably going to release it around the same time. I just have this weird feeling that the synchronicity is going to happen, and because
we should combine forces, combine the power of fan bases, etc.
Yes.
Go on and conquer the world.
I'm looking at January, February, so I'm actually going to finish the last bits of it on my Patreon, so people can kind of watch it all come together, the final bits.
Yep.
Because, that's what this show's more about, like just exposing the tips and the tricks and all the little things that you do and the mistakes. That's mostly what this show's about. Mistakes make you better, exposing the fuck-ups.
Yeah, well, I can give you a list of mistakes that I've made if it helps.
Oh, man, we'd be here fucking forever with mine and yours combined. Hey, I can see in the background.
Yep.
There it is. Is that my old Jackson Flying V still there? Do you still have it?
Yes, I do.
Yes, yep. I was hoping you still had. It's a pretty shitty Flying V though.
This is the one that I use most often now. It's a Schecter, nice. seven string Schecter with a Sustainiac.
Oh shit! Look at that.
Yeah. So I mean, this thing, it sustains forever.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful guitar. There you go.
Does it go up to 11?
Yeah, it's more like a 12.
Awesome.
That one.
I have a ESP LTD 7-string. I got my first 7-string this year and was like,
oh, really? Okay.
Oh my God, it changed my world. And I just always thought I'd never be able to play it. I thought, the extra string's going to throw me off. But oh my God, that first time I plugged it in and played a chug and went, oh.
Yeah, that lower chug. I mean, you can do that though with sort of baritone guitars and stuff. Like I've got a baritone here. The band Periphery. I mean, a lot of their really low stuff is on 6-string guitars. I think so. You can. It depends on the guitar. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they get that low on a 6-string guitar and still make it sound really cool. Perhaps I should look into that more. But that whole low sort of vibe from that gentish low vibe is something that I really like and I want to experiment with more. The main reason I went down to 7 is because of my rather limited range when I'm singing. I mean, you've got a much bigger range and are a far more talented singer than I. But I found that I could get if I'm doing stuff in E and A, for example, then because I've got a fairly limited range, that limits where I can go. But if I go down to B, then I can do the same riffs, sing the same stuff, and not blow my voice out when I'm singing on stage. And it's the added advantage of being a lower, heavier sound as well.
Yeah, can I just say, I think you're talking bullshit there because I've heard your voice and you have an incredible voice.
Oh, thank you.
It actually shocked me the first time we were working together in your studio and I heard all the ideas you had for this album. And that's when I really was like, holy shit, I always just thought you were a growler for the longest time. And nearly everybody I've played your music to always, when they hear your parts of the singing, equate your voice to Ozzy Osbourne. So for you to sit there and say you don't have a really good range, I think you have an incredible range. So I think that's something that you should give yourself a bit more credit for. Because you're both singers in Mechanical Black. So Lewis sings and you sing as well, yeah?
Yeah, look, we're both quite different.
Yeah.
So they contrast rather nicely. I did do what I did to improve my voice was I actually did vocal training. So I did vocal coaching for a couple of years, and another thing that helps was people are always complaining about auto-tune and Melodyne and stuff like that. But if you can do the reverse with it, if you can actually see what's wrong with the waveform when you're singing, you can see, okay, my pitch drifts here. I'm sharp, on this particular part, et cetera, et cetera. You can see physically on a line where you're going wrong, so you can actually correct those things, record it again, and see if you're closer. So, it can. I don't think using auto-tune and stuff like that is a good thing playing live, particularly if you're not, if you're not amazingly on pitch and in the center, then it's likely to push you over the edge. So it's going to be, right out.
Yeah.
But if you can use it as a training mechanism to train your voice to show what it should do rather than what you are doing, then I think that's a positive use of that kind of technology.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of people who are in this train of thought at the moment that they can just fix things with auto-tune. And it's not the case, where auto-tune is something that's meant to accentuate an already strong performance. It's like any effect that you add on to any performance of a guitar or drum takes or whatever. These things are meant to accentuate the already great recording, the performance. And, I think you're right there too with a lot of, I've used GarageBand on my iPad, right? And there's still a lot of people who poo-poo at things like GarageBand. But more than anything from GarageBand, what I've got is I've learnt a lot of instruments, how to play different things, how to play the keyboard. Because as you said, with an auto-tune like Melodyne, you can spot the things that you're doing wrong with your actual voice. And instead of try to fix them, fix your voice.
Exactly. Yeah. Fix your voice and re-record. You're gonna sound shit live if you don't do it.
Yeah.
So fine if you're just doing a project, have at it. Do what you want. It's up to you. Art is built by the artist. It's not for us to judge. But if you're going to play live, then people will really tell if you've dramatically adjusted your music quality to something you just can't pull off on stage. Yeah. So re-recording, and it slows things. It speeds things up too. One thing that Lewis really taught me and really kept hammering on was just play that riff again. Just play it again. Play it until you get it right.
Yeah. Don't
cut it up. It's good enough. I've got 5 takes there. I can cut them up and join them together. Just play it again. It makes it faster. Yeah, and you're able to play it better.
Yeah, you're learning it too. So you actually play it easily when you jam and with the band,
Yeah.
That makes sense. And it all depends with your engineer too. I've recorded with Lewis. Lewis is a really nice guy. I remember recording with this asshole once who, after every take went, do it again, do it again, do it again. And all I could see was the back of his head. And by the fucking 100th do it again, I was behind him going fucking retard, and I was just saying it was bad shit behind his. I was so angry, and the performance was getting worse because he was being an asshole to me. So
yeah.
But doing it again is the right thing to do. It is.
Yeah. Look, everyone who uses a digital audio workstation knows the tricks. Yeah. We all do them. We all do those tricks. But you know yourself when you're cutting corners. And as I said, if it's just a project that you're just releasing to the world in video form or in audio form on the web, then that's fine. If you're going to play it live, you owe it to your audience to be able to play it live properly.
So we're nearing the end here. So you showed some guitars there. What are some instruments? You mentioned Melodyne. What are some of the things that you use that you couldn't live without to create music? If they took them away from you tomorrow, you'd be absolutely shattered.
Yeah. Well, the digital audio workstation for me is a composition tool, not just a recording tool. So often I will record a bunch of different things. Maybe I'll record myself just jamming out noodling out for an hour and move things around to see if they fit with each other. So in terms of composition, the digital audio workstation is an amazing tool I couldn't live without. I can't do what people like Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull did and write it all in their head and just tell the players what to play. Look, I don't think he actually did it that way. I think he came up with a basic structure and they kind of helped him a lot. But that is the number one thing that I couldn't live without. The digital audio workstation in general,
yep.
And then the various plugins that come along with that. I'm really enjoying my whammy DT. I've got a normal wah pedal, but also a pitch shifting pedal. That's really changed the way I play and the way I think about how lead guitar can be played and even rhythms. So that's a big part of what I'm trying to do lately.
Is that a Digitech thing? Is this it here? Oops, I lost you on the call. We've lost Riley on the call for a minute there. We'll try and get him back on the call. Let's see. It says there's a poor network connection. You know what we'll do while we're doing that, folks? We'll jump over and we'll play a track just to keep the show flowing, and we'll see if I can get him back on the line. So this is, let's do this now. So let's play the Golden Horde, and this is cut from the forthcoming album, and I'll throw this up here now. So check this out, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Hey, hey.
And we're back. Oh, I did say at the start, shit always goes wrong, but hey, we got through it really well.
We got through. Look, it could cut out again. It's playing up. NBN.
We cut to a break. Yeah, folks, Australia's internet is shit. It just is what it is.
Thanks, guys, for those comments, by the way.
Yeah, wow. Healing Heart, welcome to the chat. I haven't said hello to you, too. I think I saw someone else I hadn't said hello to. If I haven't, I do apologise. Heavy Metalhead Hippie, welcome to you as well. Look, it does kick ass. It's a... The new album is incredible. What I'm going to do is because we've talked a lot of shit today. Not that shit, but we've talked a lot. So I'll wrap it up because I want to play another song. But I'll let you choose it out of what we haven't played today off the new videos you have up. So is there one that you want me to play? I think they're very much is kind of rocking. Yeah, good shit.
I think we could put that one on.
Just do a search for us. So there we go. Mechanical Black, very much. I agree. I was actually gonna play that, but let me just get it happening.
And this is a song directly about consciousness as well.
You've already got a few video clips up, which is astonishing. How many songs are on the album?
Well, that's still in flux. It could be as many as 11. It depends. It depends on. We're still discussing that, but we've got I think a definite 10 at the moment. Well, there are some with Mechanical Black. We tend to have these little interludes as well. These musical interludes, experimental interludes. There's a few fantastic interludes as well that are related to the theme of the album. So it's meant to be listened from start to finish with these interludes. And I guess you can include them as tracks too. So there's more than the 10.
So I don't know if you've heard my latest Metheist EP, right?
Yes.
The main track, and I'll bring this up because from the last track we just played, I actually wrote some of the melody lines for that, and I wrote a whole bunch of lyrics for it. But when it come down to, so some of the rough, similar melody lines were used, not the lyrics or anything that I wrote. So thank you for crediting even that. God, I didn't expect that. I was just going, what? There's hardly anything that I did on that song. But when I
did the chorus is your work, right? The ride your way. Yeah, that stuff. Yeah, I would give credit where credit's due, right?
So what with this Metheist song? So it's the first track. I basically used the original melody line I had for the verses from that song.
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
The whole middle. I don't know if you like.
Can you?
the middle section too.
I hadn't noticed that. Right. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So
cool.
I'll show you just briefly because I've got that queued up there. And what it was not me hijacking or trying to steal your stuff. This was my homage to your music and my time that was in, because I heard my riff, and it's not a similar riff at all, but I just could hear the same melody in there going, oh my God, it just works. So, and it was such a shame to leave those lyrics that I wrote all that time. I thought it was a really good homage to that time that we had together. I'm just pulling it up now. It sounds disgusting. I'm just pulling it up.
While you're pulling it up, there is more of your stuff too yet to come. So we've got, I won't spoil the surprise, but yeah, just there's maybe a little more Jade there.
So it's not this track. I have to, what am I doing? So I have to actually find the file because I haven't shot a video for it. I'm thinking I've already got a video for it. So here it is.
16 songs, 16 tracks. 16. Yeah, four of them are interludes.
Thanks, Lewis. Yeah. Thanks for updating us on that in the crowd there. So No More Lies is the track, and you'll hear. So in this singing bit coming up. So that's what I was originally, the vocal style, but the middle bit. Here we go, the middle bit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I hadn't noticed that. Right, okay.
Yeah, like I sent it to Lewis going, do you recognise this bit? Like, because it was only a small thing that we did back then. But to me, that was like, I don't know, it just felt like it worked with the song. The song's called No More Lies, and those lyrics about humanity, and they just fit in with...
it's cool. It's cool.
Felt right. And like when I did it, I was like, oh, and I'd actually forgotten that I had messaged you and sent it to you personally. I sent it to Lewis, but I didn't send it to you to say, oh man, here's an homage to like my time that I was in.
Well, I should say because I love collaboration. What I did do with you when was we went through all of the tracks that I was recording, and I asked you for ideas on all of them.
Yeah.
I said, what do you reckon about this bit? I'm not so sure about this chorus. I'm not so sure about this verse, etc. So, I mean, you gave input on, maybe 8 of the songs or something like that, and we've used a fair bit of it. So, yeah, credit is deserved. Yeah.
So we'll wrap it up. I'll ask the final question, and then we'll play the song because I know over on Pete Johnson's got a show after this, so I don't want to cut into his. He's got a show in about 14 minutes time. So I ask this to everybody: when do you think, in your humble opinion, would be the best time for somebody to start creating?
As soon as you can. So. If you have the thought, I mean, I'm sure plenty of people have said this before, but if you have that thought, write it down, do it straight away. Yeah. There's no time like the present.
And look, as you picked up there and said, probably the same people say different people say the same thing each time, because it is a loaded question. I'm just trying to drum it home to everybody, every interview. Just do it. And I think it's a thing that we need to keep letting people know. So.
Yeah. There are 2 types of people: people that get shit done and people that want to get shit done. So, let's get it done. That's the attitude to have, for sure.
So, folks, as mentioned earlier, amazingly, I didn't forget. Check out the links in the description. You can find all the videos on the Mechanical Black YouTube channel. So there's a whole lot more that I haven't had time to play today. There's links to the albums on Spotify and all of that. So I've put up a universal link, which links to every streaming platform. Bandcamp is there as well, everything like that. Their website, Facebook group, it's all up there. There's links to Shanghai as well, because we'll be having Lewis, the other member who's in the chat with us from Mechanical Black, who's in Shanghai, Riley's in Shanghai as well. So he'll be on the show soon as well. So check out all that music. Do yourself a favor because it's really fucking good. And we're going to go into the last track. And look, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It was a bit late notice earlier this week. I asked you to come on. So thank you very much. It is a really, I love the way it panned out too, that we've got this trans prog metal band on Transgender Day of Remembrance. Love the synchronicity, the way it panned out. And I'm going to ask everybody before we just ask Riley what this song's about and such. It is Transgender Day of Remembrance. We are calculating the people who have been murdered over the last year. It was actually over 350 people this year, and if it wasn't for COVID, it would have broken records and been over 450. So because the world was locked down, probably an extra 100 trans people weren't brutally murdered and left in garbage bins, had their heads sawn off, and everything bad you can imagine happened once again to transgender people. So I ask you, if there is some point of the day where you can spare a thought for those trans people, just light a candle. Just remember them, because they're just people. That's all they are, just people. And people shouldn't just be murdered for just being people. But that's all I'm going to say on that. And it is a big day for me too, because it's the anniversary of my mum's death. So November 20 is always a really fucking hard day for me. So thank you for spending it with me today. You've made my day much more enjoyable. And we're going to go out on this track called The Very Much. What is this track about, Riley?
This track is about not being sure whether a machine consciousness actually exists or not, but from the machine consciousness perspective, it certainly does. Yeah.
Awesome. Folks, here we go. We're going to kick this track off. We're going to say goodbye from here. Thank you very much for joining me today, Riley. Check out...
Thanks so much, Jade, and thank you, everyone.
Absolute pleasure to have you on. And remember, I will just say, remember on Sunday I've got an extra interview. My workload is crazy, with Glenn Clark from New Zealand, because his new album is out. So that's Sunday Australian time, Saturday for the rest of the world, because you live in the past. And this is The Very Much. Thank you all in the chat for being here, always for your support. You guys are fantastic. And enjoy the music and enjoy the rest of your day. Let's kick this shit off. Adios, amigos. Bye-bye.